mean, it like because our cohort in our master's program was about 30 people, and I was the only male of color in that group.
Okay.
So, it was a lot of navigating my own identity piece. Was it what's that movie? Get Out hadn't come out yet, so I was like trying to figure it out, and then it came out right during my program, and I was like, oh, and then that came out at the same time as I Am Not Your Negro.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, like double dose of like, where am I? What is this program? What is the field and profession rooted in white areas and white men doing for me? And how do I adopt that? Where do I fit in?
Yeah.
Freud didn't look like me. Jung didn't look like me. None of them did.
No.
And so to take on like a profession, like we were talking about, like, oh, there are things that mention mental health, but it wasn't called mental health yet. We just didn't have the term for it, but it did exist. And it was, even still today, you tell family members, hey, I do this in psychology. They're like, oh, but what they're not saying is like, oh, you on that white shit. It's like, well, yes,
hey,
but no.
Yeah. It's weird, man, getting these degrees, being first gen, and, people are like, oh, you one of the smart ones, huh, Nas? And like, you don't want to say yes because you're like, I don't know how they're going to take it. You're going to come at me. You're going to ask me for something. Like, it's just.
Are you going to check me right now?
Yeah. Like, we've talked about the identities of me being too white, me being too hood to be with the white kids, too white to be with the brown kids, too autistic to really fit in with anyone, and then it turns out that all my friends were always neurodivergent autistic individuals because none of those intersections really mattered. Spence gives up the thumbs up, but that's when I became like, I found my people. It would never.
And what is it? We're just like, oh, the latching onto diagnosing is heavy, right? We talk about neurodivergent. Everyone's on a spectrum. Like, to be average is feeling less and less like the majority.
Yeah.
But we, especially within the system that we exist, there's like things popping up every 3 seconds.
Yep.
It's hard to be focused when you have like market and media designed to take your attention away.
Correct.
So like we're doing the best we can.
Yeah.
Doing the best we can.
Yeah. It has a lot of stuff designed. I had a student, they all come in with the addictions of the screen time. And I know it's tough. Like, hell, it's been a while since I read a book. I try to read a book. I'm like 1 page in. I'm like, this is stupid.
No.
And it took me so many hours to read like 2 pages because of that phone. I'm like, let me just grab it. Let me just smell it.
That's why I appreciate your podcast, and like one of the, I guess, values you all have in terms of like approaching people from different perspectives and genres. So like, we want the visual, we want the audio, probably like suggesting some things people could do with their hands, but like respecting that people are different learners.
Yep.
Right. Because like I have also struggled with like some of the books and like sitting down and forcing myself to read this.
Okay.
Trying to like, and I think like schooling reinforces that, right? We need a standard that everyone to do these readings, that you find them. And it's like, if we had more school modalities that like catered to different styles of learning, you would start to see more diversity. Yeah, for sure.
Instead of suffocating everyone. I'm gonna pivot real quick.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you about something. Maybe Spence was gonna get to it because we just found out about it. So you said you were doing this comedy thing. So how the hell, you're not neurotypical if you did any comedy or improv. Like, that's not a normal person. So like, I'm not saying you're autistic, not gonna say that, but like, you gotta be different to do that.
I'm not saying it, but
if it quacks like a duck, it looks like Donald Trump, it's probably a duck,
Right.
But for real though, like, so what pushed you into that, being that funny guy? Are you just like normally always been a funny guy? Do you think fast? Tell us, are you good at mimicking? What's the vibe?
Oh, great questions, man. I really think it, one is like early on, it's like trauma response, right? It's like you feeling like you have to keep the peace.
Oh man, you couldn't come with something more happy than that shit.
My house was sad, and so I had to laugh.
All jokes aside,
But
the
look
mind formed from that too. Continue to go.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
like the given theater masks, like happy and sad.
Yeah.
I would just look over to the sad one, like Daniel, what's going on? Nah, that's a joke. But like, nah, I think it just started early on. Like
You're right.
I look at my life experiences and I find them just applicable in a humorous way. It's like there are a lot that weren't funny in the moment, but like when I look back, I'm like, you know what? There's something to be learned from that. Because you talk about the three different theories of humor. There's like superior, so you're putting others down, it's frowned upon. You have incongruity, which is like the life that we're living right now. Like you can point out so many incongruities to like how we live and what is expected of us that a response is humor. It's humor. It's because this incongruity exists. And the other one is relief. So it's like we know that there are physical responses that when you're laughing, it's like it increases your heart rate, like increases your lung capacity. It releases like those good feel neurotransmitters. You know, it's like okay, so if this is a force for good, let me continue to tap into it. Now that was like adult me. As a child, I was like just goofy. I was goofy, and I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It's just like I had goofy parents.
Okay.
Shout out to them.
Yeah. Okay.
But do you think you developed it though because you had to be the goofy person to make sure that others were like safe or happy around you because things were weird when you were a kid, or no?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I think it really is a mix of both. It is like a people pleasing piece of like if people are laughing with me, they're not laughing at me, so it's like a part to fit in. Um, like if I'm the funny guy, then that is also part of my identity, and it's not the worst identity. Like granted, you know, you start doing some of that shadow work, and it's like, dang, this will take a lot of energy to make sure that y'all are okay and I'm not okay. So then you start to maybe shift into like what makes me laugh. I did some dissertation research. I don't remember if I sent that to y'all, but I was like, what is the role of humor?
Yeah.
My oh yeah, my dissertation was when you are experiencing a racial microaggression, what does that say about your sense of choice in work? So like, you know, Black people don't do this thing, you know, y'all don't stray that. And how do you use humor to buffer that? So like you could like use humor to better yourself. You could use humor to be like, okay, we have this thing in common, so you still fit in. You could use humor to be aggressive and be like, hey, you know what, fuck yeah, you know, like we gonna start checking yourself. Like I didn't know I could make it in. I didn't know those pants would fit in, but you here, and like I'm here too. So you could go to checking somebody, or you could continue to like berate yourself, but like in a kind of humorous way.
Correct.
Like whatever your humor response is. So that was my research with Black men, and I like it's good stuff.
Interesting. It depends because I was throwing microaggression left and right at Daniel today, right? You're just taking it.
Really micro? I say macro.
Yeah, I say pretty macro.
I say pretty macro.
Yeah.
I mean, you
you learn how to read, boy? Like what? Jesus Christ.
What year is this?
I don't know. It's whatever year Trump wants it to be. I tell you that. This shit's getting crazy these days, man. I'm sorry.
Denzel on my copy of Training Day just like shed a tear. I'm looking at it.
The one black movie he's got. Okay.
Yeah.
He's Googling
all you bitches.
Just surrounded by Seventh Heaven season. So
oh my
Seventh Heaven.
You're such a white woman.
Everybody but the dad was cool in that show.
That book was right when you read it, Daniel. If you're reading this, you're a middle-aged white woman.
And I said, I too feel like I have been microaggressed in this moment.
As you have your sweater and glasses tilted down, you're just
my PSL in hand. I was like, damn, I don't like how
with your Amazon Kindle, you're just like, yes, this is
damn.
I'm offended.
Oh my God.
Okay. Thank you for picking.
Disclaimer: we love white women.
No, we love everybody in this pod. We love all the people on this pod.
We just turned off like half of our podcast.
Well, I never turned them on, so they could, how can they be turned off?
Dude.
Once
So-
we edit, it's just like the clips and like, hey, and then it's like, well, that was the shortest episode.
Yeah, all of this is cut.
all is good. No, man. So I do apologize for some of the stuff microaggressions, but I knew you could take it because of the humor and the comedy, right? And obviously, I love the identities. I love what you're bringing, but I'm trying to bring out something that many of us have to go through. I'm making these jokes about race, about being in these white spaces, about getting these degrees because it's not done. And many of the folks may not be people of color on the pod. We know it's a lot of women that listen on the pod. Also, some of these spaces are not meant for them. When they get into the work in the upper echelons of field of therapy, it might not be for them. Maybe they'll be the workers, but they won't be the bosses. We know the statistic is going to be white dudes. And so to feel othered is a very common thing with neurodivergent folks. Very common thing for anyone who's really oppressed and marginalized. And so I wanted to navigate that with humor. And then Spencer brought it in. Who were the mentors? What were the things that you do to cope and to soothe yourself? Because this is what people want to know. How is someone that fucking made it, which is you? How did you do it?
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Check out the full episode on our channel and anywhere you find podcasts. Also, remember to like and subscribe. Whoop whoop.